In this video, we're going to take our Vex IQ base spot and we're going to be adding a GearTrain configuration today. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you the GearTrain configuration, what it is, and then we're going to add it to each side where our motors are here, and we're going to have to do some disassembling to get that done. So first off, a GearTrain is being used to either speed up or slow down the robot. We're going to be using a 12-tooth and a 36-tooth gear to drive one another. And this will either make the robot go faster or slower depending on which one is hooked up to the motor, as well as a configuration of two 24-tooth gears. So that's our goal today, to add those to our side here for our GearTrain system. So setting this aside, what we're going to be doing is adding some 2x10 pieces on each side where our wheels are to hold this to make a system of gears. And let's go ahead and get started. I'll set this aside here. And working on our base spot, we're going to pull off our drive tires. Don't need those. And I'm going to pull off this square piece. If you've built this with the base spot, it's going to have these 2x1 connectors. We're going to pry those off. And now we're down just to having these two shafts coming out. Now I think we may have to replace these shafts. We're going to try it without first. What I'm going to do is take this 2x10 connector and pop off a couple of these 2x1s to get it to snap on. And what we're going to do is we're not going to drive one gear is going to drive the other. So when I do this, I'm going to be putting this one on top here. And I need to help myself out, kind of put a gear on just to see where I'm going to be as far as my holes lining up. And I notice I can either go right next to this one. Okay, that'll work for the 36 and 12. If I switch them around, that would also work. So I need to have a shaft coming out of here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pop this up. The shaft is going to be right here. So the kind of shaft I'm going to put in here looks like this. It's got a rounded head so it won't fall through. I'm going to pop it in here. This is going to allow this shaft to spin freely in our system. Again, it's going to have a rounded head like that. Go back here to put it on. And so we have two shafts here. All right. Our goal is to snap these on, but I'm going to notice something really quick on. If I'm putting, to snap this on, I'm looking for the empty holes here. There's different ways you could do that. That's once. Twice. Now on these longer ones, you could use, if you didn't have the shorter ones, you could use these long ones as well. They will fit in there in the system. So I'll pop a couple in there. That doesn't go all the way through, never mind. So we've got to pop that out. So I've got 3 of those holding those on. That's going to hold on there. And our goal is to put the 36 and the 12 next to each other. Nice and tight. So we have 2 gears. You could put washers in there, but as long as you have the gears somewhat apart and you make sure they're not rubbing in between your frame, you should be good. They shouldn't move a whole lot. But it's always a good idea to put a washer in there if you want to. And our goal is to put another piece over the top of this, somewhat like this. But I'm going to notice something here. Oop, that mine's not lined up correctly. So we're putting this on and we're going to use this piece. But I notice both of my shafts are sticking out. So when I go to put a tire on this driven one, my tire is going to hit here. This causes an issue. So what we're going to need to do is kind of disassemble here, and our original shaft that goes into the motor is going to have to be switched out. This is the thing that's kind of a pain in the neck, is going back into the base spot and switching out this original shaft that goes into the motor. So I'm going to pop this off briefly, pop off my gears. This will pop off. Slide this out. And I'm going to switch this shaft out. From right now, it's a blue one with a blue rubber that goes into the motor. And we're going to switch it out with the shorter one that has an orange ring. There's a lot of different shafts you could use, and this isn't the only way, but this is what I found to be most effective for me. So in order to get this off, I'm going to pop off my end pieces and separate my frame. It only takes a minute. Pop off the brain. So once I have this, I can easily pull out my motor, switch the shaft out, go ahead and put this in here. Snap it back together. Now that I've switched the shaft on that side, again, I went from a blue one down to an orange one. Just to get a closer look, you can see the blue one is a lot longer and the orange one is shorter. I had to shorten the shafts to make the tires fit on the outside. So again, I had to take apart this part to get to the other side. I've done this side. I'm going to take a minute to do the other side. I kind of eye things up and make sure I'm back to normal here. So I've switched out the two shafts. Now I'm going to reassemble my base spot here by snapping on my end pieces. Do two here, two on this side. So now we got our base configuration kind of back together. I've switched out my shafts. Now I can go back on to adding this part of the system on. Snap those on with these 2x1 connectors so this part is connected. And that way I can add my bigger gear here. Okay. Now how do we hold these? We want to have a frame for this to go on. So I'm actually going to put another piece right here. But in order to hold these apart so they're not being smashed together, I'm going to be putting these standoffs in between. This is what they look like. It's 1 unit wide to get 1 gear in. Again, that's a standoff. So I'm going to pull this out. We're going to put the standoffs on the end. You'll need at least 4 for each one. You can get by with 3, but 4 would be ideal. So I'll have 4 like this. We'll snap them together. Put this through. Now we have a gear setup on this side where we only have 1 shaft sticking out to put our tire on. And this makes it very simple to switch the gears out. We just pop that off and switch our 2 gears out. So here's one side, there's our tire on there, and there we have it. A 36 driving a 3, so it's a much faster. For every 1 turn here, this goes 3 times around. It'll speed up your robot. We're going to do the same thing here. Again, I've got a 2x10. We've already switched out this part. So again, I'm using another shaft that looks like this with a button head in so it won't fall through. And try to make it look the same on each side if I do this correctly. Like this. Again, I'm going to use some 2x1 connectors to connect these together. I've got 2 from this piece already that I had on my robot, so I'm going to pop those out. I'm going to try to avoid using these 2 end pieces because that's when I'm going to put my standoffs on. So I'm going to leave those holes open if I can. It doesn't have to be exactly this way. There's different ways you can put your hole arrangement. I've got 3 of them here. Stack this together here. So this piece is now secured on. All right, now I'm going to put my 2 gears. Again, I'll put the 36 tooth on here first. And then my smaller 12 onto this side. That fits on there. Now again, this is a 2x10 piece that I'm sliding over here. I'm going to use 4 standoffs on the ends. Once, twice, 3, and 4 here. So this will slide over here. I can snap this on this side and snap it on over here. Put my tire back on here. And now I've just added a gear train to my robot that has a 36 and 12. Now likewise, when you want to switch these out, we're supposed to do 3 arrangements. This is how long it takes. You pop the tire off, pop your 2 standoffs. You can either switch the position of the 12 and the 36, or you can pop on 2 24-tooth gears like this. Okay, that's the goal, is to experiment with all of these and see what they do. I'm going to go back to the 36 and 12. So it does not take long. It depends on where you have your snaps. It could come off in different spots. And we take our time, snap it back together. So it gives you an easy configuration to switch gears. Put our tire on. And I'm going to put my brain back on here. So there it is. There is your gear train, putting a 36 and 12 tooth on. Again, I did have to go from the original base spot configuration and change the blue shaft with an orange one, so it was much shorter, so it didn't interfere with the tire moving here. Again, it's a good idea to either separate these or put a washer in between so these are not rubbing. I did not do that in this step, but you can do that in yours. Okay, so again, I had to switch the shafts out coming from the motor and then create with a 2x10 some space for some gear configuration, and that is your gear train setup for the tug of war competition.